Congratulations.
Thank you. Our Sports Inquirer here with Keith Gill, Commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference. Thank you for having us here in New Orleans. Thank you for being here and speaking with us. Just how's the summer been and just getting ready for this upcoming calendar
The
year?
summer's been really exciting. I can't wait for the 2023 football season. We've got a lot of momentum from the 2022 football season. A lot of good things happen for us. Big wins over Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Nebraska. And then we had our record number of teams in bowl games. We had 7 bowl teams. We had 9 teams with 6 wins or more. So it was really just a banner year for football, and we're continuing that momentum. So we've got a lot of programs that return a lot of talent. We've got some really good coaches coming back. So the future's bright for the Sun Belt. Can't wait for the 2023 football season.
Now, this is your 5th year. At least fifth year.
Yeah, this is my 5th media day.
Fifth media day, yeah. I've been to a few of them. What's been the difference just from when you first got to the Sun Belt, that experience around the country, to now being here year 5, especially with that football success?
One of the things is, I do feel like our brand is improved. People really do respect our football and really respect all of our sports. So that has been a nice change for us in terms of just our perception and how people perceive the Sun Belt Conference. I also think adding 4 schools has made a difference. We had 10 kind of schools that kind of remained from our original conference. We added 4 schools with that. Mm-hmm. And those 14 schools collectively have really created almost a whole new conference, and a whole new field. And that's been really good in terms of the quality of our teams and our programs and the success that we've had. So I think those are kind of the biggest changes and things that have really impacted kind of our growth and development. And it's been a great ride.
We've seen so much instability in conferences and their memberships. You made that big jump last year to this year. Well, 2 years ago to this, and last year with 4 teams. None this year. How important is that stability for your conference? And just because we've seen every conference have all these teams, even around the country. We'll get to the geographical impact in a moment, but no teams in or out this offseason. How big is that for you?
I think it's been great. We're kind of a year ahead of anyone in terms of integrating all of our teams into our conference, which is great. I mean, it made for a really difficult time last year, but it has allowed us to now have just almost pure continuity in terms of we got 14 people in the room. We're all going to be there. We're all committed for the future. We're all working hard for the Sun Belt and making the Sun Belt great. And so that has really been helpful. And then I think this year we really have been able to focus, instead of trying to focus on transitioning our new members and helping our old members with a new conference and changing schedules and all that, we've really been able to focus on growing the league and really putting our efforts into making things better. So it's nice to get that transition behind us. We've got a lot of like-minded schools, so it makes for our membership to be kind of really cohesive. And I think the results have been, a really high-quality league, and all the excitement here at Media Day kind of proves that.
Yeah, and your imprint has been expanded from first few years. Had some Georgia schools, had some Texas. Obviously, Louisiana's presence is strong, but in Alabama. But now you have teams in Virginia, West and West Virginia.
Absolutely.
And and Coastal's being a member that's joined within the past few years. So you got the Carolinas thrown in there. How's that been, and just the imprint of the program on a national scale and the representation you're having?
It's been great. We've got 14 universities in 10 contiguous states. So we added schools, but we didn't really expand in ways that are unnatural for our schools. And so if you play in division, you generally don't have to travel that far, which is really nice. Before we didn't go probably farther north than North Carolina with App, but now, we extend all the way up. Probably, I don't know my geography very well enough, but I think ODU might be the farthest north in terms of where Norfolk is. But obviously, you've got you've got ODU, you've got JMU, and then you've got Marshall up there that are, above App now. So, and I think adding Southern Miss really shrunk our Western footprint. it actually made us a little closer because they were right in the middle, and it brought it together and allowed us to shift Troy to the west. So I think the regional rivalries are really important. That geography is how we kind of built our new league. That's how we evaluated our members, and I think that really has helped us in terms of just kind of leaning in to our regional rivalries, and our geography has really made our conference stronger.
You mentioned kind of the state of the conference, that you do like the divisions being broken down. Is that really more for the Olympic sports, you think, as well, as far as keeping that continuity as far as the divisions, because not having to travel longer? Is that more of a factor, or is it football playing into that as well as having a East versus West Conference championship game?
So I really think it's all about the competition in all the sports, so football and non-football sports, because we're trying to create these rivalries. And the reality is, if you're in divisions, you play your divisional opponents more. So, and that's what we want. We want more Marshall versus App games than Marshall versus some team in the West. And we want more Louisiana versus, Southern Miss games than Louisiana versus some team in the West, or Georgia State, Georgia Southern, And so I think by having divisions, it allows us to do that across the sports. Now, particularly in football, because that matters in terms of trying to drive traffic and excitement, but also in basketball and also in all the other sports as well. So to me, it's really a competitive thing. The geography creates competition that fans want to see, that's in proximity, that they can travel to, where they know the opponents, and builds excitement.
Yeah, and how big was last year the football success, and really the free advertising, all of the non-conference wins? Mentioned game day at App State.
Yeah.
I mean, how big is that? Because, I know you have a budget and you have a plan, and I know you mentioned the Times Square billboard, but that's just free advertising, all of the victories and all of and how's that impacted just the conference's brand?
Yeah, it's tremendous. Being on game day is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like a 3-hour infomercial, really 4 with the way they do it now. Our infomercial about, and it's being an app and how beautiful it is, and the campus and all those good things. So I can't really say enough, like all the earned media that we received from, whether it was the week 1 upset of ODU over Virginia Tech, or the week 2 upsets that we had, the 3, and then app on week 3, having the media, having College Game Day. I just think that you can't pay for that advertisement. It helps with the momentum. It creates a positive feel for what we're doing, and I think it's been really helpful to us in helping us grow and reach more people across the country.
You mentioned the state of the conference as well, and it's not only you, but the entire country with the NIL.
Yeah.
And we're now, I guess, a year into it in a way, or maybe a year and a half, depending how you look at it. Where do you think it is? And I know you say you've spoken to even representatives from different states on the government side. Where do you think it is right now, as far as
I think,
where do you think it's gotten better, or is there some areas to improve? Where do you think
there's a lot of areas to improve. So I think it's gotten better in this sense. I do feel like there's some momentum in Congress for a federal solution, which I think is really important to solve some of those problems. So I think that's positive. I think the actual kind of application on the ground is still kind of chaotic and not sustainable. So it's not something that I think is great at all. And so I think we're in a good spot, hopefully getting some help from Congress. And if they can do a few things, I think it'll rein some of it in. So one of the things that's really important is making sure that there's a uniform standard and not all these state laws. The patchwork of state laws make it really, really difficult. I think that's a problem. I think we need to have some transparency in the deals. I think you hear people telling you stories about valuations that just don't seem believable. Some are, but some aren't. And so if you had transparency, you know exactly what that market is. I think there needs to be some consumer protection opportunities for the student athletes and the parents. I think there needs to be some consistency amongst the framework, like a uniform contract in terms of what's kind of part of there. And then I would love to see you have to be on campus for a semester, have to be on campus for a year before you can engage in NIL activities, because I think that will get the inducement part of it out. Because one of the bad things of NIL right now is the inducements and how now all of a sudden it's pay for play and it's being used to recruit student athletes. It's not really what it's designed to do, and I think the enterprise would be better if that was eliminated.
I've seen some schools. I know North Carolina's not in the conference, but I think a few others within the Sun Belt have had the schools themselves are starting to have an NIL, just like a pool, or have events, and I guess have a pool of money, and then have it maybe distributed to the students. Do you think that may be a direction to go, instead of kind of going to the individual businesses and having these athletes or their agents, whoever representing, doing it that way? You think that'd be a better route, maybe having the schools distribute the money?
I think trying to think about ways to make the system more consistent, I think, is good. I've not thought about it enough to know if I think that's the way to
That's just an
necessarily
example
go,
of what I've seen
or
some
group
schools
license
doing.
or those kind of things. But I think those things should all be explored.
Yeah.
Group license is a thing that is good in terms of it helps a lot of different people and make sure that you've got equity in terms of men and women. So I think all those things being explored could be helpful. I think the system as it sits now, though, isn't best. So I think any tweaks we could have is only positive.
Yeah, and also what about just the TV aspect of it as well? How has that changed since your time here? I know when you first started, you had ESPN Plus, I guess ESPN 3, but now it's just Plus, and availability seemed, and this is not just for football, availability seemed limited, but now even the Olympic sports, I've seen a lot of improvements in that. How have you seen the broadcasting aspect of the conference grow since you've been here?
ESPN's a great partner, and so it's really been helpful. And our schools, we've really invested in capabilities. So, for instance, we just implemented softball requirements in terms of folks who got to televise softball games. We've not had those requirements before, so that's going to help, add exposure to that program. So we've incrementally tried to add kind of content and inventory for sports that are important to us, that we want to have some visibility for. I think in the conference office, we invested in a studio where we do over 100 events ourselves now in the conference office, that allows for more access and opportunity for our fans to see our games. So over the last 5 years, it's grown considerably. We've invested a lot of time, effort, and resources to try to create more broadcast bandwidth at our schools and in our conference, and I think it's paid off in terms of people being able to see our games more frequently.
Yeah, and also you talk about the expansion of the playoffs, or the potential of that. Wherever we're speaking right now, it's just a fluid situation, but it looks like it's leaning towards we're going to have probably an expansion of the playoff system. How do you feel that is? And then also you have a lot of bowl ties as well, so there's a balance to one teams in the playoffs. We also have these bowl relationships. How's that balance, you think, going now with the Sun Belt?
It's important. The bowl tie-ins are critical for us in terms of the postseason. So we really do want to support our bowl partners and grow those relationships. But I also think, the CFP expansion is tremendous. That's really good for us. We're really excited about it because that's going to give opportunity for the Sun Belt. We want to make sure that, we're regularly in the college football playoff. And so when that expands in 2024, I think we're well positioned to take advantage of that. So both of those postseason things are good for us. The bowl piece is healthy because, we're going to have 6, 7, 8, 9 bowl eligible teams. And so having some postseason opportunities for them is really important. But I also think the CFP is important because we plan to have a regular participant in the CFP year after year.
I was going to say, but how big would that be? Like, we were in Louisiana, Tulane. They made I guess a New Year's Six Bowl, whatever you want to consider it. Some other conferences have had that. How big would that be for the conference?
It'd be huge
to get one of these teams. No matter, I know you said no matter who it is.
Yeah.
But but how big would that be just to have that exposure for the financially, and then just for the brands?
You know what? I think it'd be tremendous. It's a goal that we have, and so hopefully this year we'll be in the New Year's Six. And then in the years after, we'll be in the CFP. We really focus on it. We talk about it, and I'm optimistic that it's right around the corner. I really do believe Sunbelt football is in a good spot, but our best days are ahead of us. And part of that is going to the expanded CFP on a regular basis.
Yeah, and just over how excited you to get the season started. I know it's a lot of preparation. So preparation that goes into But even just the fall sports. We here on our Inquirer, we cover volleyball. We'll cover soccer. It's definitely just obviously here for football, but just getting the fall sports started, even cross country, just getting it ready because it's now that time of year.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, it starts the fall, which hopefully that cuts down the heat a little bit, so we can get some relief from that. But no, it's great. Our campuses are going to start filling up. with students again, which is nice, and there's a lot of energy in that. I mean, we want to be good at all our sports, so I think getting started with both of the soccers and then with volleyball and cross country is really important to us and positive. So I think it's great. I love this time of year. I love the football part of it. I love the all sports part of it. I love just being on campus, and so really excited to get started for 2023.
Yeah, and then also one last thing, you mentioned New Orleans, and the media days will be here the next 2 years. I think different location, but at least still in the city. Yeah. How important is that relationship and just in New Orleans? I mean, that's where conference office is, but just being in the city.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so connected to New Orleans, so that's really important. So being here just matters. I mean, and I think people like coming here. It's a great town, great eating town, great music, so much to do, so much great culture, and it's a good sports town, good football town. So I think New Orleans is a perfect place for us. It's our home. We're just a few blocks away in the Superdome, which is really nice. And so this is a great place to continue to have our media day. It's outstanding.
Could we see a conference championship game here possibly?
In New Orleans. You know what? I really do like it on campus.
Yeah, you've talked about that before. You seem to lean. Why is that? Why do you lean towards that more than the
I just think a good energy, good atmosphere. There's some benefits to neutral site, but there's some benefits to campus too. So I think having it. Having that as one of the things that you earn from the conference championship, I think there's a lot of value to that. And so I think playing it on campus is just something that's great. I mean, obviously, if there comes a time when I think moving it would be beneficial, I'm open to that. I've just not seen or heard anything that I thought was compelling.
Yeah, and lastly, what are some things that are in the you're working on right now for the conference? So maybe one or two things that we may see in the next few months, or that you want to see happen.
Yeah, we're working men's and women's basketball strategic plan. We're trying to get better at basketball, so I think that's going to be really important. We're working on trying to get better at football and I mean at baseball and softball as well, and continue to improve. I mean, we're really good in those sports, but we don't want to take our foot off the gas. And so, and then this year, we were so close to having a second volleyball team in the NCAA tournament, and so, I'm optimistic that this will be the year that we break through and we're a multi-bid league in volleyball.
How does that happen? Like, besides obviously the teams like just doing well, do you think it's just more exposure or something? What can the conference side of things do?
We're trying to invest. In terms of we broadcast more volleyball now. We've invested in our championship now, so we're trying to create that experience to allow our coaches to create better or to recruit better, more profile student athletes. So it's kind of incremental growth, right? You do a little bit here, a little bit there to get better. And then hopefully those things click and, you win a few more games. That's the hard part. That's the variable you can't control. Winning is hard. And so the best laid plans don't necessarily result in victories.
And this will be the last thing also, change that leadership in the NCAA level. How does that, you think, impact the conference? Is this the time to just maybe reevaluate? Just NIL obviously is the big headlining one, as far as maybe things to change and to adjust. But what does that mean just at the NCAA level? Maybe does this open the door or maybe an opportunity to maybe look at some other things at the national level? Yeah,
I think one, I'm really excited about Charlie Baker's leadership, the new NCAA president. I think he'll do great. He's off to a really good start and he's got a good perspective. So I'm excited. I think that's all going to be helpful to us. And I think we can work closely with him to do some really good things, whether it's in the NIL space, gambling space. That's another kind of place where we've got some work to do. In the transfer space, we want to make sure that we're trying to get a little bit less movement in that space, I think. So I think there's some things we can work on from a national standpoint. And we look forward certainly to working with Charlie Baker to move some of those things forward.
Would there be, you mentioned the portal, I didn't even touch on that. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing guys, I talk to guys, in Sec 2, 3, even 4 schools. Do you see potential of not necessarily limiting where they can, well, I guess so, but like as far as where they can go, or maybe having to be at a school for a certain amount of time? You mentioned that with the NIL benefits. Yeah. Do you see potential in that as far as some regulations of having to be at a certain place a certain amount of time before transfer?
My preference, I don't want to put too many restrictions on it, but I certainly want to make sure that people are educated and they know what the ramifications of movement is in terms of how it affects academic outcomes, and the fact that there's a lot of people that go into the portal that don't find homes, and so it's a very disruptive thing. And you hear about all the positive cases, but there are a lot of negative cases for the portal that aren't helpful, to people and to the system. So just trying to figure out how we make sure people know what they're getting into, and do it in an informed way with their eyes wide open, I think is really critical.
Thank you for your time. And
yeah, thanks so much.
We're going to catch up for basketball season. We got it. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.